Hey, Bills Mafia. We know there's only one topic every day. All Bills, all the time. And now Matt Bovee and Sal Capaccio are going really deep, talking Bills all year long, because it's always game day in Buffalo.
All right, well, it's finally over, and they did it.
Yeah.
They did it, Matt. I mean, the Bills are moving on to the AFC Championship Game. Welcome in right away here. It's always game day in Buffalo, giving you a quick post-game pod right from One Bills Drive as the snow falls outside Highmark Stadium.
Yeah, you can probably see how, I didn't put a hat on for the live shots at 11 o'clock here. Yeah, you can
Look at that,
see it
folks.
right
Behind us there. Crazy.
there. I always try and, I don't know. I try and act tough, like it makes any sort of difference if I don't wear a hat or if I wear a hat. So I went on TV without a hat on, and I'm sure my mother will text me about her not being thrilled. I do have a scarf, though. Yeah, I mean, snow's coming down. I mean, kind of a poetic way for the night to end. This place was packed. It didn't really snow. Then it started to snow a little bit at the end of the game. Now the snow's really fallen. But, yeah, the Bills one win away from a trip to the Super Bowl.
60 minutes away, and, of course, they have to go play the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll touch on that a little bit later. But this one, boy, I mean, it came down once again to the final possession. I think everybody knew it was going to be a classic. 21-10 at halftime. You're like, oh, I'm feeling comfortable, but you can never feel comfortable. Lamar Jackson was incredible. He was a bit off on a few plays here and there, but he also made some spectacular plays. And the Bills didn't make the mistakes. The Ravens made the mistakes. I think that's really the story of this game.
Incredible? I don't know if I'd go incredible. He was good. He made some ridiculous plays.
I agree with that, yeah.
He
was a little off on it some, too.
He also had an interception and a fumble that directly led to a touchdown. Yeah. So, I feel like he is the reason why the Ravens had a chance at the end, because of the spectacular plays that he was able to make and him buying time and all of this. It is not on Lamar. Going into this game, it was billed as the heavyweight fight, Josh Allen between Lamar Jackson. I don't think either of them was spectacular in this game. The Ravens made mistakes, the Bills did. That is the biggest difference to me in this game. And he was directly part of two of the three big mistakes that they made. Four mistakes if you count the drops from Mark. I mean, two of them are from Mark Andrews. So do I think Lamar played a bad game? Absolutely not. He's the reason they were in it. But I don't know. I've seen some narratives online like he did everything he could. It's like, well, no, he didn't, because he had a fumble that led to a touchdown and he had an interception that was a bad ball. So he didn't do everything that he could. He had 2 turnovers.
From the Bills side, though, they forced him into some mistakes for sure. I mean, of course, you have the bad snap. Lamar picks it up, and then the Bills do a good job, to get on that ball and then, take it to inside the Ravens, territory inside the red zone. They ultimately, score touchdowns. The Bills, for a little while, it was getting away from them. They did not score on their opening possessions of the second half, and I was getting a little worried there for them.
Scored 6 points in the second half. That's not good enough.
No.
And that was one of the reasons why the game was close. But, I mean, they got to win. I don't want to, start the podcast with negative stuff. They're going to the AFC Championship.
Right.
They did a lot that was good in this. I mean, the defense, to me, is why they're in this
So let's start with that. Let's do it. How about Terrell Bernard? What the play of the game? Play of the game for sure.
I think back to last year, how distraught Terrell Bernard was at locker cleanout day that he was unavailable to play in the divisional round, because he thought that if he was out there, he didn't say, I would have been the reason we would have won, but he knew that him not being out there was a really bad mismatch for the Chiefs that they exploited. And then the Bills went home. Now, a year later, he's in the divisional round. He's in this moment. And all week, right, we talked about Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano, Taron Johnson. Those guys didn't play in the first game, and they were going to be difference makers. The Baltimore side was, come on, we're talking about some linebackers and a nickel cornerback being the difference. Look at the difference from Terrell Bernard. He was exceptional. He made the play of the day for the defense, punching that ball out, recovering it from Mark Andrews. It was the first fumble from Mark Andrews since 2019.
Amazing.
Which is nuts. But, hey, they got the bounces. There have been years when the Bills don't get the bounces. Several of them. Today they got the bounces.
And I've said to a couple of people since then, since the game has ended, this is really the kind of game the Bills have lost over the last several years. This is what's kept them out of advancing. It's what's sent them home from this round each of the last 3 seasons, is a game like this where they just don't. Let's go back to it, right? I mean, you go to Kansas City, 13 seconds. You go last year against Kansas City. They don't make a couple critical plays down the stretch. These games that are like the games of the year, even the regular season, Minnesota a few years ago, these wild games.
They always lose this game.
How about the Rams, right, this year, right? The same thing. They didn't today because they made critical plays at critical junctures. And obviously that proved to be a big difference. Okay, Josh Allen. Let's talk about him because I just did the numbers. He was 73% passing.
Sure.
I mean, this was not a statistically overwhelming game for Josh. He only threw for, I don't know if the number's in front of me.
125 yards
Right.
or something.
But he was 73% passing. He also ran 2 touchdowns in. This was don't make mistakes, be efficient, allow our defense to make a couple plays, and we could just do enough on offense. They did. Maybe not in the second half enough, but they did enough throughout the game.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with Josh's game. I have an issue a little bit with some of the play calling and some of the decision making in the second half, but I don't think that's a ton on him. There was one that he checked into. It looked like he checked into the screen pass to Dawson Knox on 3rd down. That was a bad check. So it looked like he went into that play and it, was a disaster and they lose yards and then they punt it there. I think there's probably a couple plays that he wants back, a couple different decisions that they can make moving forward. But, I think Josh was totally fine. I wouldn't say, I would even go good. He was good in this game. He was not great. He was not spectacular. It was not a Josh Allen playoff level, like playoff caliber performance we've seen in the past, but it was enough. I mean, he made the plays when he needed to.
Josh Allen and the Bills offense didn't have a prolific day. Let me get you the full numbers here. Total offensive yards. Let's see. Here we go. 273 to the Ravens 416. If you just looked at this box score, you would think the Ravens dominated the Bills. Of course, that's not the case because of the critical plays that were made, especially by the Bills defense, but also along the way, some critical plays made by the Bills offense to keep them, keep the drives going, I guess you'd say. And then I guess once you got in the red zone, that was also a big key today. 3 for 4 in the red zone. They had to score. They did when they got down there 3 out of 4 times.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of different things that go into it. 3rd downs for the Bills were not great today. Offensively, they didn't do a great job. And the rate, what were they, 5 of 11, 45%. The Ravens were 7 of 10, 70%. So that was another area that's been a concern for them all year. But splash plays. This game, for as complicated and for all of the layers that go into this, it's very simple to me. The Ravens made costly mistakes and the Bills didn't. And that is the only reason why the Bills are going to the AFC Championship. And that's not like, it's not like we should be taking credit away from the Bills because they played a clean game. They should get credit for playing a clean game. I have heard so many people say this week that the only team that can beat the Ravens is the Ravens. And I kind of feel like we saw that a little bit today. I feel like the Bills did some stuff to contribute to that, but the Ravens, no pun intended, dropped the ball in a lot of situations where they could have made this a different outcome, and they didn't.
What was you? The 2-point conversion was right here. You could see it from where you were in the media. The press was right in front of me. What did you see? What did you think when it happened?
Well, he was so open. So I'm looking at it, and I'm like, okay,
You were still upstairs?
Yeah, I was still upstairs. Let me walk you through. So when Lamar throws the touchdown, I don't even know who caught the touchdown. Was it Bape? I don't even know who caught the touchdown. When he throws the touchdown, my initial reaction is to snap my head and look at the clock. And there's like a minute 33 or something there. Do we have who caught that touchdown?
No. I'm sorry. There we go. Isaiah Likely.
Okay. So Isaiah Likely catches the touchdown. There's 1 minute and 33 seconds left on the clock. Yeah. So immediately I'm assuming they're going to get the 2-point conversion. Mm-hmm. It's a tie game. There's a minute 33 left. The Bills have 2 timeouts. How can they get down the field and get into field goal range? Because that felt like enough. Like, okay, we're going to have a Tyler Bass chance at redemption in the divisional round, whatever. Then I watch the play, and it's coming right towards us in the press box. And he looks so open. And I'm looking, and then all of a sudden you see the ball just hit the deck. Yeah. And you could almost hear the gasp, like we're pretty soundproof in here. And
there's so everybody knows, there's no like emotion in the press box, no cheering, but I can imagine there had to be.
It's very sterile,
but I had mentioned there had to be something you could feel in here.
Well, it was like a gasp of, oh my gosh, he dropped it. And then all of a sudden it was like the Bills are an onside kick recovery essentially away from winning this game. Like it just went from, okay, minute 33, get the ball to get the onside kick. And you should win the game. Now all of a sudden your head switches. You're trying to do the math. Okay, minute 33, they got 1 timeout. If they use the
they needed 1 first down.
They needed 1 Well, I don't think they would have needed 1 first down. They would have iced it with the 1 first down. They would have had the ball. They would have been given the ball back with
right to get to seconds. Literally run the clock out. They needed 1 first down. They got that in the first play, obviously from Ty Johnson. They kneel it out from there. It was right in front of me, that 2-point conversion. I agree with you. For me, the official was standing the goal line. He's in my line of sight. When it hit Andrews, I could see he was open too. As soon as it hit him, I thought, okay, this is going to be a 2-point conversion. And then suddenly I see the ball laying down. I actually picked up the ball.
No kidding.
I did. I picked up the ball on the incompletion because it landed right at my feet.
Yeah.
I picked it up. I gave it to the ball boy. I'm thinking, I can't believe that he dropped it. I had no idea how it happened. I watched. There's been some debate online if Lamar threw a good ball or not. It hit him right in the breadbasket. I mean, I know he had to turn around. It hit him right in the stomach. No,
It was low. I mean, it's not on Lamar Jackson.
I haven't looked at all the replays, but I thought so.
I want to make this. It's not on Lamar Jackson, but it's for such an easy pitch and catch.
Yeah.
It's one that you would like to think is waist high, like above the waist. And it wasn't. It was, he had to, he's got to make the catch. He is a very good tight end in the NFL. But yeah, I mean, it's Josh Allen said after the game that he talked to Von Miller over the summer, and Von told him, sometimes you get the bounces, sometimes you don't. That's just life in the NFL. And it feels like this team has been on the other side of the bad bounces. The missed kick from Tyler Bass, the 13-second debacle. Like there has been the fumble in the Minnesota game on the goal line. Like they always lose this game. This one, they didn't, which then kind of gets me to the big picture. We've been talking all year. There's something different about this team. I don't know. Maybe there is. Maybe these are the bounces that you get along the way to where you're trying to go.
Before we get to the Chiefs, I think this week and last week, even though they weren't like amazing plays or weren't a 61-yarder, might have been Tyler Bass's best 2 weeks of the year.
Yes.
Tyler Bass last week was really good on both kicks and on kickoffs. And then today, the 51-yarder proves to be the difference, really.
Yes.
Kicks a 51-yarder, another field goal. That's the difference in the game. And in the field conditions the way they were, they won by 2 points. I mean, for Sean McDermott to have faith, to kick that field goal, and then at the end, I thought he made the right decision, by the way. You tell me.
He did.
I thought he made the right decision, go up 8.
He did.
Because you have to score and get the 2. You're banking on him score twice, essentially. Yes, one score game, one possession game, but you really have to kind of score twice. If Josh Allen or someone doesn't get in, they lose.
They lose the game. I mean, if they go for it and they don't get it, now you're up 5.
So,
I mean, look at the way they moved the ball down. I know they would have been coming from a little bit, but it would have been a 10-yard difference. They started at the 12. They would have started at the 2. The only way I would have went for it, and I heard Sean McDermott say after the game that if it was 1, they would have definitely went for it, and at 2, they would have had the conversation. I would have only went for it at 1 with the Josh Allen quarterback sneak. I wouldn't have done it at 2. I think they made the right decision in considering it was a long 3, make it an 8-point game. That decision was ultimately why they won, because even though they gave up the touchdown, the 2-point conversion failed. And, I think at that point, you're trusting your defense to get a stop, but you're trusting the defense to, even if they give up 1, have a chance to make 1 more play. And they got lucky.
One notable injury in this game, Taylor Rapp left the game. It did not look good. We'll see if he can go next week, but a hip injury. He went in for x-rays. He was then declared out, so you can read into that what you will, but we'll get more information. But I will say Cole Bishop came in, looked like communication was good with Damar Hamlin. Damar actually had the forced fumble, the sack and the forced fumble that Von did recover, but I thought Cole Bishop did a nice job when he came in. Also, really quickly on this game, only a couple targets overall for Keon Coleman or Amari Cooper, and no catches at all for Amari Cooper on 1 target. Yeah. Keon Coleman, 1 catch on a slant for 5 yards. And I mean, Khalil Shakir, 6 catches, 67 yards. He does what he does. That was it from the Bills receiving core. That was it. I don't care what position you played. Yeah. The Bills just did not have much of a passing attack like that.
I mean, look at this. Look at the stat line. Khalil Shakir has 67 yards. Here are the other guys. James Cook, 15. Curtis Samuel.
It's amazing they won this game.
It's a game that they are usually on the other end of. It's usually they have the stat line like the Ravens, and then for some reason lost. It's a very Chiefs win.
Yeah, sure.
It is a very Chiefs win.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that as an insult, because look at all of the success that they have had. It is a very, how the heck did they win that game? Oh, whatever. Move on. What happened today will have absolutely no impact on what happens next Sunday.
That's right.
You just have to get there.
I have a saying on the radio, Matt, if you've ever heard me say it. Whatever happened here, you can't say, well, if they play like that against the Chiefs. Well, they didn't play the Chiefs today. They played the Ravens today. Every game is different. If the Chiefs play the way they did against the Texans, I think you could say the same thing, that, the Bills will beat them, but that's why they're going to play the game next Sunday. A quick look ahead to the Chiefs, and we'll answer a couple of questions. Sure. What's your initial thoughts?
Let's see. Initial thoughts. Well, this gets us to a question, because I was just looking at questions.
This is another legacy game, by the way. I'll say that. This is a legacy game. The Chiefs, this was a legacy game for the loser, especially. It is also next week, but more so for Josh Allen, because Patrick Mahomes already has 3.
I was listening to some sort of Instagram reel, and it was talking about how, this team, the Bills or the Ravens, have a chance to go to the AFC Championship or whatever. And somebody was like, this would be the 4th time the Bills have played against the Chiefs in the playoffs. There's no way they're losing 4 in a row. And the other person gasped and they're like, about the Bills losing 4 in a row. So that's going to be something that we kind of, have in the back here. But this will
actually be the 6th time because they did play in the 90s overall.
Oh, yeah.
In the AFC Championship.
So this is a question from Andy. And I think this gets us to the Kansas City conversation.
Hold on. I just want to get this to my brain real quick. AFC Championship in 20. The other one was divisional round playoffs in 21. And then here last year, yes. They played in the playoffs a couple of times in the 90s. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. Is it weird that I'm less nervous about Kansas City than I was about Baltimore?
I don't think it's less weird because you've seen them beat them. I think that's weird. It's to be nervous about, actually, oh my God, I can't believe it. They have a chance to go to the Super Bowl. It's super weird. It's super normal. But Matt, they've gone to Kansas City and won. Mm-hmm. They walked off the field with 13 seconds. Josh did with the lead. They won in the regular season there. All that's left here is to actually do it in the playoffs.
How poetic, right? And I've always kind of felt this way. And, it's not like you need to have these storybook endings or whatever. But I always kind of felt like for the Bills, if they were going to get to where they're trying to go, they had to do it by going through Kansas City. I always felt like, okay, if you want to be the team that goes to the Super Bowl and maybe one day wins the Super Bowl, you got to do it in this era through Kansas City. Like I would have honestly felt a little bit weirder going into this game if Houston beat Kansas City. So I would have been like, ooh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, all of a sudden now you're playing to host the AFC Championship. That's against a team that you would like to think that you can beat. I'm not saying you would rather play the Chiefs than the Texans. That's ludicrous. But it feels like it's just one more thing that you got to do, right? It's like, okay, if you're going to do this, you got to go in and you got to slay the dragon.
Yeah.
But I also think that it's at least on paper a little bit of a more favorable matchup than Baltimore was. Baltimore was what I thought the toughest matchup the Bills could have in the NFL. You could maybe make the argument like Philadelphia just because of the way that they run the ball. But I was like, man, for a run defense that's a bit sketchy, for an undersized defense, for a lack of playmakers on offense, like this Baltimore defense is going, this Baltimore team is going to be a tough one to beat. And they did it. Like I really do, at least right now, think that it's a reasonable thing. Do you know what the line is?
I don't.
Yes.
Kansas City's favored by 3.
Nope.
2.
Nope.
1.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It was like 1 and 1.5, depending on where you were looking. So, all right, I want to just go into questions.
Yeah, sure. What do we got here? Let's get a couple in.
Question from Matt. How awesome was the stadium? Couldn't be there in person. Was jealous. You're going to need to tell me because I obviously was up in the press box. What was the atmosphere?
On the field? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What was it?
Yeah.
I was reading something else. Sorry.
What was the atmosphere like out there?
Oh my God. I mean, it was, I have not, I mean, I've heard the stadium as loud as could ever be in so many environments. So I'm not going to say it was loud. I've never heard it that loud before. I've heard it really loud like it was today. But when Von scooped that ball up and was running, it was unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
It was unbelievable. And then, but just, it was incredible afterwards. Just saw when people finally knew the Bills won, that's when this, that relief from the fans started, showing up and you could feel it. It was great.
Yeah. All right. Can we give the coaching staff some long to deserve credit now? This is from Sam. I feel like Sean McDermott has really, it's not like we have to see what happens, the way the season ends, whatever. But it feels like there was a little bit of a dip in the Sean McDermott approval rating, we'll call it, right? A lot of the fan base, you don't show up in big moments. You can't get past the divisional round. This year, Sean McDermott has done an exceptional job with this team. And then you have him after the game making the comment about the city of losers and like adamantly like punching the table. Like that wins people over. That is exploding on social media, that clip right now, because I think people resonate.
Matt posted it, by the way. You can see it. And I'm glad you did it. And I didn't want to give Jerry Coleman any attention all week. We didn't mention him really on the podcast. I didn't want to do that. But I will say, hey, if you're a Ravens fan, you should know the Bills used Jerry Coleman's comments as motivation. They played it on the big board. It fired up the crowd. I know players were aware of it. They used it. Jerry Coleman calling Buffalo a city of losers. Hey, whatever. They're not losers tonight. They're winners and going to the AFC Championship game. You're right about that. I will say, though, Matt, listen, there is a segment of fan base that is just waiting for Sean McDermott to lose next week to tell you that he can't win the big game. It's just there's a segment of the fan base out there. The realistic fans who actually follow and know football understand that Sean McDermott's done an excellent job with this team this year.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about it today because this will be our last game at Orchard Park. And I was thinking about driving to the stadium on the first game of the year for the Arizona game. And I remember just thinking about the season and the expectations and not really knowing what to expect. Like, full disclosure, they have far exceeded my expectations. I thought they were a 10-7 team this year. And I was like, hey, I think they're going to make the playoffs. They've got Josh Allen. They can get hot in the playoffs, but I just don't know what to expect. And for them to finish 10-0 at home, for them to lose 4 games with only 3 of them mattering, one of them was at the end of the year and they didn't have to play for anything. Like, this team's the Chiefs had a historic season. Like, any other year would have been the 1 seed. Any other year, this would have gone through Buffalo. Okay, now you got to go to Kansas City. And he deserves a lot of credit because the personnel that this team has, like the way they lined up against the Ravens today, like, look at that team. Roquan Smith, Kyle Hamilton, Marlon Humphrey, Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, even their tight ends. I know Mark Andrews had a bad day. Look at the plays that Isaiah Likely can make. Look at the plays that they're just loaded with talent, but the Bills are a better team. And that's because a lot of the coaching.
Yeah, good points there. Okay, we're gonna have a lot more content coming your way throughout the week.
Let's get all
right. What do we got? We're at 20. We're at the 20-minute mark. We'll get a couple more in.
Sarah, what surprised you most about this win for the Bills?
What surprised me most about the win? Maybe I don't know what would have surprised me. That's a good question, I guess. Maybe just the fact that the Bills played such mistake-free football and Ravens made the mistakes. I'm not saying that the Ravens couldn't be prone to that. We all know that. But you get in these moments, like, the Bills were really good and mistake-free. I mean, that's what they were. They committed 1 penalty. I mean, I think there was one that was declined, but 1 penalty, that's also pretty big on their side.
I think the Ravens only had like 4.
5 total. And the 1 penalty Bills committed, by the way, was a bad call on Deion Dawkins for a hold.
Brutal call. Yeah. The Ravens, what was your take on the Trey White DPI call?
I didn't see a good enough replay. It felt like he was holding his arms down but I couldn't tell.
It was a bit ticky-tack. You could have made the argument that Keon kind of brought him to the ground, but that's what people sometimes do.
Anything surprise you?
I would say the biggest surprise was the Bills. I don't want to call it a stubbornness, but their adamancy. Is adamancy? Adamance?
I don't know.
Tim, what's the word for adamance? Like,
being adamant. If you wanted to have an adjective, adamancy.
Is there a word for that?
He's asking Tim Graham.
He's a pretty good. He's a pretty good writer, so I figured he might know. The Bills were a little bit too adamant running the ball. I thought that they would break off of that in the second half because it was not working as well. Yeah. And that's actually another question that a lot of people have asked.
We've gone this whole podcast and did not talk about the job they did or didn't do on Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry ran for over 5 yards a carry, but he had less than 90 yards rushing. The Bills came into this game and said, "You are not running the football on us." Do you know what he had in the first half?
Probably like 30 yards.
He had in the first half less than that. I think he had 27 yards on 8 carries. Here we go. First half, Derrick Henry, 21 yards on 8 carries, 2.6 yards a carry. Yeah. The Bills went into this game and said, "We are not letting Derrick Henry beat us." And he did not beat them in the first half. They started getting it going in the second half. They found a little what they were doing, and he started running a little bit. And I don't know. I would say they did a good job on him, even though it was 5.3 yards a carry, because by doing what they did in the first half, it kind of didn't get the Ravens to think that they could just pound him at them all day. They started running in the third quarter. The other go back to your question from Sarah, surprise. This was a surprise to me. Matt, do you remember once Lamar Jackson pulling it out of the belly and taking off?
No, it was crazy. Crazy.
Never.
I was stunned. I thought that was going to be the game plan. I thought without Zay Flowers, it was going to be Derrick Henry running, and it was going to be Lamar tucking the ball into his chest and rolling out and trying to run. And I mean, that did not happen. So yeah, I mean, that was definitely surprising. I'll say the game script kind of worked in the Bills' favor in the first half, and they really stopped Derrick Henry a couple plays early. He, of course, did get going in the second half, but no, I mean, you want to hear another fun stat?
Yeah. I
believe this is the 7th time the Bills have played against Derrick Henry. They're undefeated against him when they wear their blue jerseys, and they are defeated when they wear their white jerseys. So another reason, next gen stats.
That is
4-0 in blue jerseys and 0-3.
I know they love you love the uniform stuff. That is a uniform stat right there. No doubt about it. All right, well, we said the Bills are going to, get ready to take on Kansas City. We're going to have a fun week with that. And of course, on the other side of the ledger, it's going to be the Commanders at the Eagles. So we'll see what happens. Bills have the later game again next Sunday. Of course, the Chiefs do have that extra day rest, which could help, and it's going to hurt, Taylor Rapp's availability. Maybe he's not going to be available at all, but that'll be the big storyline we're kind of staying on top of. Real quick thought on if the Bills don't have Taylor Rapp, does Micah Hyde become an option?
Ooh. No. And you know me, right? Like, I would be the first one to say yes. I don't think
In that
so.
situation, I think it's tough.
I
The
think it's
first time
I
of the
think
year.
It's Cole Bishop, it's Kareem Jackson, it's Cam Lewis, and it's probably just figure it out. I think we'll see more of what we saw in this game where it was DeMar and Cole Bishop. And like you could definitely notice that Taylor Rapp was not out there. He is pretty good at some things. So I think that they missed him for a little while, but it was a different game plan in the second half. Like it felt like the Ravens were really just like, hey, okay, we're going to run the ball in the second half. And then the minute the Bills, I don't know.
This is a much different matchup next week, by the way. It's a much different matchup.
Totally different. Totally. One of the questions was, why did the Bills trade for Amari Cooper? And you can look at the box score today and be like, hey, that's a great question. You want to know why they traded for Amari Cooper? Because if Amari Cooper makes 2 big catches against the Chiefs and they win, nothing else matters. Or if they win against the Chiefs and he has a big play or 2 in the Super Bowl, nothing else matters. You know who had a couple big plays when they played the Chiefs? Amari Cooper. He had a couple big plays down the sideline. So, they're going to have McDuffie, and I know they've got their other cornerback now, and they've really missed him earlier in the season. Jalen Watson, like they're a different, better team than they were earlier in the season. But I do think the Bills are going to be able to have some success offensively.
We got a lot more coming your way all week long. And of course, you can follow Matt on television as well. WKBW TV, Channel 7 in Buffalo. You can follow me on WGR Sports Radio 550. Keep right here. Wherever you get the podcast on audio form, we'll be here all week. iTunes, Spotify, and of course, on video, Sal Sports YouTube channel at Sal Sports on YouTube. All right, buddy. Well, let's enjoy it. Be safe driving home tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Enjoy it, everyone. It's obviously very exciting time in Buffalo sports. Don't take it for granted, but I know got a lot more that you want to probably see.